It's 6:47 a.m. on the 23rd of November 2025. The sky above the southern Caribbean is clean and bright, but inside the Combat Information Center of the USS Gravely, nothing feels calm. A sharp tone cuts through every headset at the same moment. The air goes still. Someone whispers, "New track," coming from the Venezuelan coast. The symbol on the main radar shifts color, marking that their S300VM battery has locked its scan onto the ship's airspace. No missile launch, no warning message, just a hard radar beam holding steady on the destroyer. The bridge crew moves fast. Boots hit the deck, screens brighten, voices tighten. No one panics, but no one breathes easy either. They all know this is not a test. This is Venezuela, showing that Russian-trained teams are now watching every mile of water the US Navy crosses. In the radar room, a second tone hits. Another lock, two different sights. Someone asks quietly, "Is this the start or just pressure?" No one answers. The commander steps forward, eyes fixed on the glowing screen, and gives the order that will decide everything. Then, the feed flickers almost like someone on shore wants them to hesitate. The room falls silent, waiting for the next move. What happened that morning was not just another radar lock. It was the clearest sign yet that the balance of power in the Caribbean has shifted. For decades, US ships moved through these waters without real resistance. But since early November, Southcom has tracked a new pattern along the Venezuelan coast. Their S300VMs have been tuned with Russian support. Their Panzer units have been drilled non-stop. Their radars now link multiple coastal bases into one tight chain. So, when those beams swept across the USS Gravely, the message was unmistakable. Venezuela can now track a US destroyer the way major powers track targets near tense borders. This matters because the southern Caribbean is not just warm water and shipping lanes. It is where the Fourth Fleet runs patrols, where Coast Guard teams cut drug routes, where aircraft refuel before pushing deeper into the region. That system works only when distance and communication are respected. A sudden radar lock breaks that balance. One late radio call or one misread signal can turn a routine patrol into an incident. No one can walk back. For the crew, this is not about strategy. It is about standing on a steel deck far from home while shore systems watch every move. A radar lock is not an attack, but it is a warning. The margin for error is now razor thin. When a foreign military can pressure a destroyer with a single sweep, every mile feels heavier. Every choice carries more risk, and every sailor feels the tension long before alarms sound. That moment on November 14 showed something bigger. A regional power, backed by a global one, is now willing to challenge movement in waters the US once took for granted. The Caribbean has entered a new phase where confidence is not enough. Every sweep matters, and every response echoes in Washington, Caracas, and Moscow. If you were in that CIC, watching the radar turn from green to amber, what should the Gravely do next? Press 1 to stand firm or 9 to pull back. The first thing the crew feels is the shift in the room. Screens brighten, voices drop, and everyone leans forward as the Venezuelan radar beam holds steady on the USS Gravely. No one shouts, but every sailor knows the next minutes matter. A petty officer calls out the bearing. Another confirms the second pulse from a different coastal site. The watch officer checks the angle and timing, trying to see if this is a simple scan or a real move. The commander steps in and asks for identification. The answer comes fast. S300VM on the first site, Panzer on the second, both active. The electronic warfare team works quickly. One sailor tracks the signal strength, another logs frequency changes. The beam is clean, steady, and controlled. That alone tightens the room. The Gravely holds course for a moment, waiting for the radars to drop. They don't. The lock grows stronger. Someone says quietly, "They're painting us harder now." The commander orders, "Set condition 3. Boots hit the deck as teams check power levels and missile readiness. Even the engine room reports in early, knowing that any sudden maneuver will demand full power. Then a new alert appears. A Venezuelan patrol aircraft has taken off, flying on a route that angles toward the destroyer. Still far, but close enough to matter. The radar room tracks both the aircraft and the coastal beams, watching for any change in altitude or heading. The air team begins checking flight deck wind data, even though no one wants a helicopter launch in this situation. On the bridge, the sea looks calm, almost peaceful, but everyone feels the tension rising. The navigator calls out distance to international lanes. The operations officer checks wind in case they need to turn fast. The commander keeps his hand on the console, eyes fixed forward. He knows every choice he makes will be recorded, reviewed, and questioned. A burst of radio static cuts through the silence. No message, just noise, but enough to pull every head up. The Gravely sends a standard status check toward the coast. No reply. The radars stay locked. Every sailor knows what this is now. A test of nerves, a test of control, and a moment that could shift with a single wrong move. The next decision will set the tone for the entire region. The Gravely holds its line for another minute, waiting for the radar beams to drop. Instead, a third pulse appears from deeper inside Venezuela. 3 separate sites now tracking one destroyer. In close encounters, that means coordination. And coordination means intent. The commander orders a slow 5-degree turn, enough to create distance without signaling retreat. Down in the CIC, the radar picture shifts as the ship angles away, but the coastal beams shift with it. Someone on shore is matching the Gravely move for move. A quiet voice reports the Venezuelan patrol aircraft climbing slightly, now flying parallel to the destroyer's path. Not closing in, but not leaving either. The commander keeps repeating one rule: no sudden moves. The Gravely sends another call toward the coast. No reply. The silence feels sharper than any threat. A short coded signal flashes across the electronic warfare screen. The team doesn't know the message, but they know what it means. Multiple sites on shore are talking to each other. This is not one nervous operator. This is a network. The commander raises the ship's profile just a little, angling the missile launchers upward. It is a subtle move, nothing threatening. Just a reminder, the destroyer is not an easy target, but the coastal radars keep the lock anyway. The Venezuelan aircraft keeps pace. The operations officer points to the chart. The Gravely is approaching a narrow corridor between shipping lanes. If anything escalates inside that choke point, turning will be slower and more dangerous. The commander orders a small speed increase. The engines respond with a steady hum, but the radars on the coast follow every mile. Another burst of radio static cracks through the headset. Still no voice, still no answer. A sailor mutters, "They're not letting go." Everyone knows the next choice decides whether this ends as a tense morning or becomes a regional crisis. If you were the one standing on that bridge, 3 radars locked, an aircraft pacing you, no communication, what would you do next? Press 1 to hold the line, or 9 to ease off and wait for the pressure to break. Just as the Gravely settles into its new speed, an unexpected contact appears on radar. It isn't a missile trail or an aircraft return. It's smaller, quieter, almost hidden. A tiny metallic object shows up near the Venezuelan coastline. The team first tags it as debris, but debris drifts, and this thing doesn't move at all. It sits perfectly still, like it was placed there on purpose. The technician tightens the scan. The shape is too clean to be a buoy or a fishing tool. The operations officer leans in and says, "That's positioned." A weak digital pulse comes from the device, low power but steady. Not a weapon, but active. Paired with the radar locks coming from shore, the meaning is clear. Someone is building a detailed picture of the destroyer's movements. Then, the Venezuelan patrol aircraft shifts altitude, matching the angle of the new contact. Instantly, the pattern lines up. Coastal radars, the aircraft above, and the silent device on the water all move in rhythm. This is not random. This is pressure from multiple directions, designed to test how the Gravely reacts. The navigator calls out the distance only a few miles. The commander considers launching a drone for visual confirmation, but the risk of misinterpretation is too high. Any fast move could escalate the situation. For now, watching closely is safer than acting. The CIC goes quiet. The sailors feel the shift. This is no longer a simple standoff. It is a layered setup shore radar pushing from one side, an aircraft pacing overhead, and a fixed device gathering data at sea level. The Gravely is not just being watched, it is being studied, moment by moment, by someone who knows exactly what they're doing. If you were beside the commander, staring at that fixed contact, what would you think it means? Press 1 if it's just a probe. Press 9 if it's the start of something more serious. The tension inside the Gravely spikes when the unknown object suddenly shifts. It doesn't drift like something pushed by the current. It moves in a straight, deliberate line just a few feet, but enough to prove it's controlled. The radar technician calls out, "Movement on the contact." Heads turn toward the main screen. No one knows if it's a remote sensor, a small surface drone, or something meant to trigger a reaction. At that same moment, the Venezuelan patrol aircraft dips and points its nose toward the destroyer for the first time. Still distant, still slow, but the ship changes the air in the room. The commander leans forward and says, "Hold speed, no panic moves." Everyone knows this is the most dangerous phase when both sides watch and wait for even the smallest mistake. Coastal radars tighten their beams again. The signals grow sharper. The electronic warfare team reports, "All 3 sites active. They're aligning on us." Not a missile launch, but exactly what precedes a decision. The CIC becomes so quiet the ship's engines sound louder than usual. The commander orders a clean turn 10 degrees, bigger than before, but still controlled. The Gravely leans as the ocean pushes back. The radar beams follow instantly, proving someone ashore is locked on every move. Then the object in the water stops. Completely. The patrol aircraft levels out, and for 3 long seconds, nothing happens. No radio call, no signal change. Silence. In a standoff, silence can feel like the closest thing to a trigger. The commander finally says, "Bring us to the edge of the lane. Keep the bow clear." The engines push. Distance opens. The coastal radar stay locked, but do not escalate. The aircraft holds altitude and stops turning inward. Then a shift. Signal drop on the device. The EW team reports. The object fades from the screen. The patrol aircraft begins a slow turn away. One by one, coastal radars loosen their beams and return to normal scans. The pressure lifts like a weight sliding off steel. No one cheers. They all know how close the morning came to becoming something far worse. The commander watches the horizon and says quietly, "This was not an accident. Someone planned this." If you were on that deck during those silent 3 seconds, would you push forward or pull back? Press 1 to stand firm or 9 to open distance. When the pressure finally fades, the Gravely settles into the outer edge of the shipping lane. The ocean looks calm again, but the crew feels the weight of what just happened. No weapons fired, no damage done. Yet everyone knows how close the standoff came to turning into something far more serious. Sometimes, silence after a tense moment feels heavier than a real fight. Inside the CIC, the team saves every radar image, every coded pulse, every movement of the unknown object. Nothing about the encounter was random. Someone on the Venezuelan coast watched their reactions, measured their timing, and tested how the destroyer handled pressure. The Gravely didn't fire a shot, but it still revealed how it operates under stress. At Southcom, analysts will compare this incident with others from earlier in November. They will study how the coastal radar stayed aligned, how the patrol aircraft matched the ship, and how the small device on the water held steady before going dark. The conclusion will be hard to miss. Venezuela, with Russian support, now runs a coordinated surveillance network in waters the US once sailed through without challenge. For the sailors, the impact is personal. They know future patrols in the Caribbean won't feel routine anymore. One radar lock or one strange contact could trigger hours of tension. Everyone understands that this was not just a random morning. It was a test, one that may lead to bigger tests ahead. In Washington, the incident will spark debates. Some will call for stronger presence in the region. Others will push for better communication to avoid mistakes. But all will agree, the balance in the Caribbean is changing fast. By sunset, the Gravely heads north, leaving the tension behind but carrying the lesson forward. The message from the Venezuelan coast was simple: "We see you, and we can challenge you anytime. If you were writing the report tonight, would you push for more patrols or more diplomacy? Press 1 for patrols or 9 for diplomacy.